Something fundamental has broken between men and women. You can feel it in every conversation about relationships, every discussion about marriage, every debate about children. We've reached a point where the two genders are operating from completely different playbooks, and men are finally realizing that playing by the old rules means losing everything. Let me explain why men across the world are done being the understanding, accommodating, self-sacrificing good guys that society demanded we be. The ideological divide between genders has become a canyon. I see it every day in my practice. A man talks about wanting a traditional family structure, not because he wants to oppress anyone, but because he's seen what works. He's immediately labelled as controlling, outdated, toxic. Meanwhile, she wants all the benefits of traditional male provision, while maintaining complete independence and authority. These aren't compatible worldviews, and pretending they are is destroying relationships. Here's what's really happening. Each side has created a narrative where they're the hero and the other is the villain. She sees herself as breaking free from oppression, pursuing empowerment, claiming her independence. He sees himself as offering stability, commitment, and partnership, only to be treated like an ATM with no authority. Neither can understand why the other doesn't see it their way. This loss of empathy in gender relations is staggering. I had a couple in counselling where the wife couldn't understand why her husband was upset about being excluded from decisions about their children's education. "I'm the mother," she said, as if that explained everything. When I asked her how she'd feel if he made financial decisions without her input, she said that was completely different. But it's not different. It's the same dismissal of a partner's involvement. The conversations reveal how deep this emotional detachment goes. When men express wanting equal say in family matters, they're told they're trying to control. When they step back and let her lead, they're criticised for not being involved enough. When they express hurt about being sidelined, they're told to stop being dramatic. There's literally no acceptable way for men to advocate for their own involvement. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the systemic imbalance in family courts. For decades, the legal system has operated on the assumption that mothers are inherently better parents. Fathers were visitors in their children's lives, weekend entertainment, check writers. This wasn't based on evidence or child psychology. It was based on outdated gender assumptions that somehow only seem to matter when they benefit one side. I've counselled hundreds of divorced fathers, and their stories are heartbreakingly similar. Good men, involved fathers, who suddenly find themselves reduced to every other weekend. Men who coached a little league, did homework every night, never missed a recital. Now they're getting 2 days a month if they're lucky. And society wonders why men are checking out of family formation. The bias isn't subtle. Judges who assume mothers are naturally more nurturing. Lawyers who advise men to just accept standard visitation. Court evaluators who scrutinise fathers for working full-time, but don't question mothers for the same. The system has been rigged for so long that people think the rigging is natural law. But here's where things get interesting. Reform is becoming a turning point for parental equality. Several states and countries have started implementing default 50-50 custody laws. Equal time, equal responsibility, equal authority. And guess what's happening? The people who claim to want equality are losing their minds. Kentucky passed a shared parenting law, and feminist organizations fought it tooth and nail. Florida tried to pass similar legislation, and it was vetoed after massive pressure from women's groups. Why? If equality is the goal, why fight equal parenting? Because it was never about equality. It was about maintaining advantage while claiming victimhood. The shifting divorce trends after legal change tell the real story. In states with equal custody laws, divorce rates have dropped significantly. Turns out, when both parties know they'll share equal responsibility and can't use kids as weapons, they work harder to make marriages work. When the nuclear option isn't as attractive, people choose negotiation over destruction. This reveals something important. Many divorces weren't about irreconcilable differences. They were strategic moves enabled by a biased system. When you know you'll get the kids, the house, and financial support, leaving becomes an easier choice. Remove those guarantees, and suddenly people discover they can work through problems. The female control over family dynamics has been institutional policy for decades. Not just custody, but decision-making power. Schools call mothers first. Doctors defer to mothers' wishes. Even when fathers are equally involved, they're treated as secondary parents. This isn't natural or biological, it's systemic bias that everyone pretends doesn't exist. I see this control play out in intact marriages too. She makes unilateral decisions about the children's activities, education, medical care, then tells him about it afterward. If he objects, he's controlling. If he wants input, he's undermining her maternal instincts. The message is clear. Fathers should provide resources but not opinions. The loss of this dominance is deeply unsettling for those who've grown accustomed to it. When men start demanding equal say, equal time, equal authority, it's framed as an attack on motherhood itself. But it's not. It's simply asking for the equality that's been preached but never practiced when it comes to parenting. The myth of male danger is one of the most destructive narratives in our society. We've been conditioned to see fathers as potential threats to their own children. Every man in a park with his kid is viewed with suspicion. Fathers get dirty looks for taking their daughters to the bathroom. This isn't protection, it's paranoia. The statistics tell a different story than the narrative. Mothers are statistically more likely to abuse children than fathers. Mothers' boyfriends, not biological fathers, pose the highest risk to children. But these facts don't fit the story, so they're ignored. Instead, we operate on the assumption that children are safer away from their fathers, despite all evidence to the contrary. This cultural conditioning runs so deep that even men internalize it. Fathers doubt their own ability to parent. They defer to mothers even when their instincts are right. They accept being treated as babysitters in their own homes. The programming has convinced everyone, including men themselves, that they're secondary parents at best. The institutional and media bias is overwhelming. Watch any family court drama, read any article about custody disputes, attend any parenting seminar. Fathers are portrayed as either absent workaholics or bumbling idiots who can't handle a diaper. Mothers are wise, sacrificing heroes who deserve default authority. This isn't journalism, it's propaganda. Academia is even worse. Gender studies departments pump out papers about toxic masculinity while ignoring male suicide rates. They study the wage gap while ignoring the workplace death gap. They champion women's rights while actively opposing fathers' rights. The bias isn't hidden, it's celebrated as progress. Advocacy organisations that claim to support families actively work against fathers. They fight shared parenting legislation. They oppose reforms that would give men equal rights in reproduction decisions. They lobby for policies that maintain female advantage while preaching equality. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Here's what redefining fairness and equality actually means: identical standards regardless of gender. If we believe parents should be involved with their children, that includes fathers. If we believe in equal rights, that includes reproductive rights for men. If we oppose discrimination, that includes discrimination against fathers in family courts. True equality isn't selective. You don't get to cherry-pick which advantages you keep while demanding equality in areas where you're disadvantaged. Either we're equal or we're not. Either parenting is gendered or it isn't. Either we judge by merit or by chromosomes. Pick one and stick with it. The moral justice argument is simple. Men's struggles deserve the same recognition and response as women's. Male suicide, male homelessness, male educational failure, male parental alienation. These aren't less important because they affect men. A society that only cares about one gender's suffering isn't progressive, it's discriminatory. The emotional suffering of separated fathers is a silent epidemic. I've sat with grown men sobbing in my office because they haven't seen their children in months. Strong, successful men broken by a system that treats them as wallets rather than parents. These aren't deadbeats. They're dedicated fathers prevented from being fathers. The powerlessness these men feel is crushing. They follow court orders perfectly, pay support religiously, jump through every hoop, and still get denied their children. They watch their kids be turned against them through parental alienation while courts do nothing. They're told to be grateful for whatever scraps of time they're given. The isolation is perhaps worst of all. Society doesn't acknowledge their pain. There are no support groups, no awareness campaigns, no ribbons for alienated fathers. They suffer in silence because expressing their hurt is seen as weakness, or worse, as evidence they're unfit parents. The very system that causes their pain punishes them for showing it. I remember one father who hadn't seen his daughter in 6 months. The mother kept making excuses. The child was sick, had activities, wasn't feeling up to it. The court did nothing. This man, an executive who negotiated million-dollar deals, sat in my office shaking because he was powerless to see his own child. He said, "I never thought I'd be the kind of man who cries, but I dream about her every night." Another client discovered his ex-wife was telling their children he abandoned them, when in reality she'd moved 3 states away without notice. By the time the court addressed it, 2 years later, the damage was done. His kids believed he didn't love them. The judge's response? Well, they're settled now, we can't disrupt their lives. His life, his relationship with his children, that disruption didn't matter. This is why collective action and advocacy for men is essential. Individual men getting crushed by the system changes nothing. But organised men demanding reform? That's different. Look at the fathers' rights groups successfully changing laws. Look at the men's organisations challenging bias in courts. Standing together isn't just helpful, it's necessary. Men need to stop being ashamed of advocating for themselves. Every other group organises for their interests. Every other demographic has advocacy groups. But when men organise, they're called bitter, angry, or worse. This shame-based control tactic has worked for decades. It's time to stop falling for it. The pushback will be intense. You'll be called names, labelled as extremists, accused of wanting to oppress. This is the price of challenging systems that benefit from your silence. But remember, wanting equal time with your children isn't extreme. Wanting fair treatment in court isn't oppression. Wanting your struggles acknowledged isn't hatred. Expanding the meaning of equality requires us to stop justifying everything through the lens of how it benefits women or children. This is good for mothers shouldn't be the end of every policy discussion. What about fathers? What about men? Their well-being matters too, not as a side effect of helping others, but as a worthy goal in itself. Social progress that only moves in one direction isn't progress, it's supremacy. Real progress recognises that both genders face challenges, both deserve support, both need advocacy. Policies that protect fathers' rights to their children aren't anti-woman, they're pro-family. Laws that ensure fair treatment for men aren't misogynistic, they're egalitarian. The fear-mongering around fathers' rights is revealing. If men get equal custody, women will stay in abusive relationships. But weren't we told women are strong and independent? Children need their mothers more. But wasn't gender just a social construct? The arguments shift depending on what maintains advantage. Here's the reality. Children need both parents. Not visiting dad, not weekend dad, not child support dad. They need actual, involved, authoritative dad. Studies consistently show children do better with involved fathers. Lower crime, better education, healthier relationships, higher success. But this data is ignored because it threatens the narrative. The resistance to equal parenting reveals something darker. Some people benefit from broken families. Lawyers get more billable hours from custody battles. Therapists get clients from damaged children. Government agencies justify budgets through managing dysfunction. There's an entire industry built on keeping fathers from their children. The ideological divide becomes clear when you examine the language used. Mothers raise children, fathers babysit. Mothers have maternal instincts. Fathers have learned behaviours. Mothers sacrifice. Fathers help out. This linguistic programming reinforces the bias at every level. Language shapes thought, and the thought is that fathers are optional. Men are starting to recognise these word games. When she says, "we need to communicate," she means, "you need to agree with me." When she says, "be more involved," she means, "do exactly what I say." When she says toxic masculinity, she means, "any masculine trait that doesn't serve me." The vocabulary of modern relationships has been weaponized against male participation. The empathy gap is astounding when you compare responses to similar situations. A mother crying about missing her children gets sympathy, support, and social action. A father in the same situation gets told to man up, move on, or that he probably deserved it. This isn't just individual bias, it's institutional. Support services for mothers outnumber those for fathers by hundreds to one. Men are done playing nice because playing nice meant accepting second-class status in their own families. It meant being grateful for whatever access they were granted to their own children. It meant funding a system that worked against them. It meant staying silent while being systematically disadvantaged. The nice guy was expected to work himself to death. Providing, then accept being called absent. He was expected to defer to her parenting decisions, then be blamed for not being involved. He was expected to sacrifice everything in divorce, then be painted as the bad guy. The nice guy playbook led to exploitation, not partnership. This isn't about becoming harsh or cruel. It's about recognizing that being accommodating to an unfair system perpetuates that system. Being understanding of bias doesn't eliminate bias. Being the bigger person when you're being systematically discriminated against just enables more discrimination. Men are learning what every other group learned long ago. You don't get equality by asking nicely. You get it by demanding it, organizing for it, fighting for it, legally and politically. You get it by refusing to accept less than equal treatment. You get it by calling out discrimination even when society tells you to shut up. The institutional changes needed are clear. Default custody in all states, equal say in reproductive decisions, equal weight in family court testimony, equal access to domestic violence services, equal consideration in education policy. These aren't radical demands, they're basic equality, but they're fought tooth and nail by those who benefit from inequality. The change is already happening. Younger men are rejecting marriage at record rates. They're demanding prenups when they do marry. They're fighting for their parental rights in court. They're refusing to accept the deal their fathers took. This isn't a crisis of masculinity. It's an awakening to reality. Some people call this a backlash, as if men demanding equality is somehow revenge. But it's not backlash, it's balance. For decades, the pendulum swung one way. Now it's swinging back towards centre. The people who benefited from imbalance will scream the loudest, but that doesn't make balance wrong. The future of gender relations depends on actual equality, not the selective version we've had. That means equal rights and responsibilities in all areas, equal authority in parenting, equal weight in custody decisions, equal options in reproduction, equal recognition of suffering, equal support for struggles. This threatens those who've built their identity on being victims while holding institutional power. But cognitive dissonance isn't a reason to maintain injustice. The fact that some people are uncomfortable with true equality doesn't mean we should accept inequality. Men advocating for themselves isn't anti-woman any more than women advocating for themselves is anti-man. This isn't a zero-sum game where one gender's gain is another's loss. Children having involved fathers doesn't harm mothers. Men having reproductive rights doesn't diminish women. Equal custody doesn't destroy families, it strengthens them. The reason men are done playing nice is simple. Nice got them nowhere. Nice got them excluded from their children's lives. Nice got them treated as utilities rather than partners. Nice got them systematically discriminated against while being told they were privileged. Nice was a luxury they could afford when the system was fair. The system isn't fair. But this isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about building a world where both genders are treated as equally capable parents, equally deserving partners, equally valuable humans. Where a father's love for his children is valued as much as a mother's. Where men's struggles are seen as worthy of address as women's. The men who are done playing nice aren't the villains. They're fathers who want to parent, partners who want equality, humans who want recognition. They're tired of being told their needs don't matter, their contributions aren't valued, their struggles aren't real. They're done accepting less than equal treatment in the name of being good guys. Some will say this message is divisive, that it promotes gender warfare. But pointing out injustice isn't creating division. The injustice creates the division. Demanding equality isn't warfare, it's justice. Refusing to accept discrimination isn't aggressive, it's necessary. The path forward requires honesty about the current state of gender relations. We can't fix problems we won't acknowledge. We can't achieve equality while maintaining institutional bias. We can't have partnership while one side holds all the cards. Real progress requires real equality, not the performance of it. Men organising for their rights as fathers, partners and humans isn't a threat to anyone who actually believes in equality. The only people threatened are those who benefit from inequality, and their discomfort isn't a reason to stop, it's evidence that change is needed. Every man watching this has a choice. Continue playing nice and accepting whatever scraps you're given, or stand up and demand equal treatment. Continue being silent about discrimination, or speak up even when it's uncomfortable. Continue enabling a biased system, or work to change it. The men's rights movement isn't about taking anything away from women. It's about gaining what should have always been there. Equal treatment under law, equal consideration in society, equal value as parents. This isn't radical, it's reasonable. This isn't extreme, it's equality. Change won't come from those benefiting from the current system. It will come from men collectively refusing to accept second-class status in families, relationships, and society. It will come from fathers demanding equal access to their children. It will come from men supporting each other instead of competing for approval from a system that devalues them. The collective power of men standing together is what terrifies the establishment. Divided men are easily controlled, easily shamed, easily dismissed. But united men demanding fair treatment? That's unstoppable. That's why there's such effort to keep men from organising, from supporting each other, from recognising shared struggle. The time for being nice is over, not because niceness is bad, but because it's been weaponised against men. Your reasonableness has been used to justify unreasonable treatment. Your cooperation has enabled discrimination. Your silence has been taken as consent. No more. This is why men are done playing nice. Not because they've become bad, but because they've realised that nice in an unfair system just means compliant with your own discrimination. They're done being understanding about bias. Done being reasonable about unreasonable treatment. Done being the bigger person while being systematically diminished. The future belongs to men who advocate for themselves without apology, who demand equal treatment without shame, who organise for their rights without fear of labels, who refuse to accept that their needs, struggles and value matter less because of their gender. This isn't the end of cooperation between genders, it's the beginning of real partnership. But real partnership requires real equality, and real equality requires men to stop accepting less while being told to be grateful for it. The men who are done playing nice aren't giving up on relationships, family or society. They're giving up on accepting unfair terms. They're giving up on being silent about discrimination. They're giving up on a system that demands their resources while denying their rights. This movement isn't going away. Every unfair custody ruling creates more advocates. Every biased law creates more activists. Every dismissed father's pain creates more determination. The system that created this response can't suppress it. It can only address it or face growing resistance. Men deserve better than they've been getting. Fathers deserve equal access to their children. Partners deserve equal say in relationships. Humans deserve equal recognition of their struggles. This isn't controversial, it's common sense. But common sense becomes radical when it challenges profitable bias. The reason men are done playing nice is that they've realised nice guys don't finish last, they don't finish at all. They're removed from the race, told to be grateful for watching, then blamed for not participating. The game was rigged, and the only way to win is to demand new rules. This is a watershed moment. Men are waking up to systemic bias that's been invisible, because acknowledging it was forbidden. They're seeing patterns that were always there but never discussed. They're connecting dots that make uncomfortable pictures, and they're deciding they won't accept it anymore. I want to hear from you. What was your breaking point? When did you realise playing nice was getting you nowhere? What systematic bias have you experienced that society pretends doesn't exist? Drop your stories below. Your experience matters, your struggle is valid, and your voice deserves to be heard. It's time to stop being nice about injustice.